everyone, this is Rohini Kapoor from Step by Step Talks, and today I have a very talented actress and singer as our guest. An actress and singer who has received critical acclaim for her performance on stage and on screen. She won the Tony Award for the Best Featured Actress in a Musical for her role in Sweet Anita in the musical Jelly Last Jam in 1992. Tonya Pinkins is also known for her powerful voice, versatility, and emotional depth in her performance that nobody can beat. She has appeared in a variety of Broadway productions and television shows, and to name some, Hostages in 2013, Scandal in 2012, Newlyweds in 2013, Law and Order, Crime Story, Cosby Show, All My Children, and I can go on and on and on. The list is endless. She is an amazing, amazing performer, and she has, in addition to her Tony Award-winning performance, Tonya Pinkins has a successful career both on Broadway film and television, like I said earlier. Anyway, welcome, Tonya. It's just a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you, Rohini, for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, before we go on and we get into some dialogue, I just want to let everybody know that Step by Step Talks really supports women being financially independent. And we've also just launched a new program, a 50-step program for children being financially literate. Now, as I was speaking to Tonya earlier, she has some amazing story about financial literacy and how she does encourage and promotes financial literacy in women and in children. Tonya, welcome. Can you tell us your thoughts, give us your thoughts on what we just spoke about?
Well, money is energy.
Yeah.
And how we think about it really makes a real difference in our lives. And this sounds crazy and strange, but I have an innate faith in the universe and in the universe supporting me and taking care of me. And money's just one way that gets done. And so I don't worry about money. I decide what I want to do, and I trust that a way will be made. And I say that I say to people, well, if you want $1 million, a lot of times we decide the how, and that's what gets in the way. Like, what if you found it in a brown paper bag? What if you won it in the lotto? What if someone had to die? Like, when you start setting conditions on the money, you actually start eliminating the ways that it could happen. So I've, as a young person, understood about creating a foundation for myself about finances. And one of the things, and I don't know where I got it from, because I was 12 or 13 when I started this, because I started working when I was that age. I practiced saving, taking 20% off the top and always paying myself first before any bills were paid, paying myself first, 10% into what we might call savings emergency fund, and 10% into a retirement account, an IRA, a 401k, whatever you want to do. That I think I started my first corporation when I was about 19 or 20. And
Wow.
I tell all of my American students, American friends, that you must become a corporation. They have more rights than human beings, and so you must have one. You cannot really operate financially in the United States system without being one. And the advantages that it will provide you are too much for me to talk about in this podcast. But as our former president, soon to be president, said, the financial system, the tax system in America is corrupt. He said he knew it because he used it. And it was designed to help rich people and corporations. And so you would behoove yourself to become one if you want to take advantage of all of the things that being a corporation allows you to do.
You are so right. You are very right. And I'm amazed that you're saying 20% because I've been in the financial industry for 3 decades or more. And, I always used to advise put 10% away. But, when you say 20%, 10% for a rainy day and 10% for your retirement is just perfect. If everybody could do that, things would be so much easier as you grow older. The problem is, when you grow up in a family or you have grandparents who have always been in debt, and then you have parents who've been in debt, you just grow up thinking that debt is okay. And I keep saying debt is not okay. Debt drags you down. You need to get rid of it because it's debt that causes all the issues in most, in most marriages. Debt is a big problem. Many marriages break down because of debt. People don't get to hospital because they can't afford to go to hospitals, and so on and so forth. But
Those
you are
things
so
are true.
very right.
So can we
They are.
talk about debt? Can I push back with you about debt?
Please go ahead. Yes,
Okay.
of course. Yeah.
I, of course, grew up in a house where my mother was always in debt, and that was the time when the creditor would call you on the phone and they could knock on your door, and she'd
Yeah.
always be sending me to the door or me to answer a phone. So the humiliation and shame around debt was immense.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
immense,
Yeah.
and just the panics I would get into if I ever had to be in debt. And I remember there was a point when I had a friend, and we both had small children. She had one daughter, and I had two small children about the same age in school. And she was telling me how she hadn't paid her rent in, I don't know, many months, and yet she was getting ready to go to the spa for the weekend. And I was like,
Oh
"Huh?
my goodness.
What?
Uh,
What?" And she just had this attitude of like, "Well, I don't have it, and they don't have debtor's prison. I mean, what? They can't get blood from a stone." And I was like, "Huh?" It was so weird
Shocking.
and
Yeah.
shocking and crazy to me, but I had known her for a few years now and saw that despite her telling me that she was like literally living on the point of eviction regularly, she had a mindset that she did not allow that to take her out or take her down. And now she's, got her own company and very, very far more
Wealthy.
financially successful than I am in terms of like just cash that she's been able to put away. But she never allowed the debt to take her out. And, you know, my background with my mother in debt, and then she shifted my opinion so that I've actually done two bankruptcies, two
Wow.
in a
You have.
two in a row, and not because I had huge debt. I
No.
did them because I was in a divorce, and my ex-husband was so vindictive that he actually sued me for $6 million for violating his civil rights. And this was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard of. I didn't even bother to show up in court. And so he got a judgment against me for
Wow.
$6 million for violating his civil rights. And then I tried to file for a bankruptcy in the state of New York, and they were like, nope, you can't bankrupt it. So I ended up having to move to another state, live there long enough to establish residency and to file for bankruptcy there to bankrupt this $6 million default judgment. And then when I got ready to marry again, because this man, years have passed now and he's still coming after me, I was like, let me just do one more bankruptcy just to ensure that nothing in the new marriage he will be able to come after. So I did
Wow.
two bankruptcies in a row, which meant there were 20 years during which I had no credit. And I have to tell you, it never stopped me from doing anything. I bought houses. Um, I just worked and I paid cash. And as I said, was my first corporation when I was about 20. I've now done another corporation. I have LLCs for independent business. And the 20-year mark where, the bankruptcies leave your credit report happened to me in about 2019. And so at that point, I had been putting my 10% away, and I wasn't actually putting it in banks. I had it in cash in my house. And when
Right.
as soon as the bankruptcy falls off, suddenly credit cards are coming my way. And I was like, whoa, I've lived for 20 years without credit. What did I do with my first credit card? I made a movie. I made a feature film called Red Pill.
Ah, yes.
And, since then, I have a very large credit line. So I can do lots of things. I've made 2 or 3 movies. And I saw this documentary with Roy Cohen. Many may know him. He was an attorney general of the state of New York. He was a very hateful man. He was a man who liked to sleep with men, but didn't consider himself homosexual and hated homosexuals and did many horrible things in America that didn't protect homosexuals and didn't stop the spread of AIDS. But one of the things he said in this documentary was, I intend to die $7 million in debt.
Oh my goodness.
I said, what? And I think I saw this maybe 5 years ago. I was like, $7 million a day. And then boom, light bulb goes off. I know that you are like resisting me right now, Rohini. I can feel it.
Yeah.
But let me just so
Yeah,
what the light bulb was for me was like, oh, somebody extended him $7 million of credit. Oh, well, nobody's going to extend me $7 million of credit. But what it suddenly said to me was that the wealthy people in the world are extended these huge lines of credit, which are based on invisible money that doesn't exist. And so they get to have experiences, they get to start businesses and fail at them, of which
yeah,
is tax deductible. And so all of these businesses and experiences that the very wealthy who are extended lines of credit are allowed allows them to have opportunities that the rest of us who are not going to be extended lines of credit like that are not allowed.
allowed.
And Roy Cohn did die with about $7 million of debt, and we don't have debtor's prison here in America. So
No,
he was in a class that gave him an opportunity that the average human being on the planet is not going to get.
not able to get it. Yeah,
But
that's
the
right. You're
shift
very right.
in my mindset was, oh, so how do I use debt to allow me to have experiences and to create opportunities for myself? And so what that
Exactly.
meant is if I wanted to make a movie, that's business. And
Yeah,
if the movie doesn't make money, it's a tax deduction. It's going to reduce my taxable income because it's a corporation doing that. And that
that's
debt
right.
and that loss is going to pass through to me. Now, that's because we still don't have debtor's prison. That may end in the future, but we don't right now. And so I try to explain this to my children. I've made, corporations for them. I'm like, you got to do more things inside your corporation so that these things you're doing are business decisions that become tax deductions, because that is how the American tax system is set up.
Yeah, it's unfortunate or fortunate, it's the way you use it, and
It's the
the way
game that
you've
they
planned it.
made.
Exactly, and the way you're thinking is just the way to go and make it work for you. But I think from what you're saying, you have the power to make a meaningful impact and contribute positive changes. I think on a local, national, and a global scale with your stories.
I don't know. I tell my
I
stories.
think so.
My
I
students,
think so.
think I'm crazy. And I
Yeah.
say, well, ask your parents. Why don't, can
Why?
you come back to me and tell me, what do your parents say about why not become a corporation? And nobody ever has an answer for why they shouldn't. They're just scared to. And I think one of the other things that I've tried to tell people for years is that us at the bottom, we are primed, we are educated, we are trained to accept our place at the bottom. And most of the things that they tell us about the way we need to live and what and how we need to do things don't apply to the rich. Like they tell us, oh, welfare is so bad. Oh, but the Pentagon gets welfare. Oh, the big companies get bailouts. Oh, but if we do it, it's a shameful thing. And emotion is far more powerful than facts.
Oh yeah, of
And
course,
so they
100%.
get
Yeah,
us in our gut and in our emotional way, and we self sabotage because they convince us that the very things they're doing to stay on top of us would be shameful and horrible for us if we did that. And so it begins inside the mind, and in the being willing to do things that you have been raised all your life, and it's in your bones and your sinews that this is
yeah,
awful.
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember once I met a
Exactly.
very rich woman who was getting something called crystal stairs. This was in California. She had this beautiful house on the ocean, but she was on welfare. And I was like, but she had set up her finances in such a way that crystal stairs, which, oh, the welfare queens, that there's always the Black woman, crystal stairs was allowing her to put her children in the most exclusive private school in Los Angeles, the Little Red Schoolhouse. Don't you know I went and signed up and my children went to Little Red Schoolhouse? But we don't have the mindset to think, well, Crystal Stairs is going to give us childcare. I don't have to do it in the little place around the corner. I can take that money and put it anywhere I want in my community.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's the mindset, just like you said. Now tell me, by from what I'm hearing, How can you inspire other women to take action, educate themselves, and work towards creating a more, a more just and equitable world? How? Because we're looking at injustice here a little bit, I guess, right? What can you do, Tanya, to with your experience and your fame and your hard work where you are today? How can we inspire some women to say, okay, today I'm going to do I'm going to start my first step towards financial independence? And I'm saying this because in my last few episodes I keep getting asked, so what do you want me to do, Rohini? You would say financial independence, what should I do? Now, I am coming up with a 50-step process for women on how they can start putting money aside. Even, your Starbucks coffee can be put aside for a day and you'll save $10, right? But, what do you think? Can you say to the women to inspire?
Um, we all have been made into consumers by Edward Bernays, first the father of public
Yeah.
relations. If
Mm.
we started looking at our consumption and figuring out how to cut that back, and it's hard because we're being primed 24-hour days with ads and every screen that's telling us to buy this and they're targeting the ads to us. But if we cut back on consumptions, cut out the Starbucks coffee, what do
Yeah.
we actually need? Put that, if it's all that it is can be is 10% into the retirement account. That 10% that you put into the retirement account, that reduces your taxable income by that amount of money.
Yeah.
That is
There
a
we go.
great first step.
Perfect. So we start by just leaving your $10 coffee, even if it's $10, you start on a weekly basis, but continue doing that on a regular basis and
That's
forget about that money.
$3,000 in a year. That's,
Yeah. You see.
$3,500 in a year that you have
Yeah.
put into a retirement, which means you're not going to pay taxes on that $3,500.
Right.
Because it's
Exactly.
reduced your taxable income. So that's one huge thing. And then the second step for me is you got to start a corporation. You got to start yourself an S corporation, and you got to find some side business that you do so that you have some tax deductions that are business deductions that pass through to lower your taxable income again.
That's a wonderful piece of advice. Just fantastic. As we move forward, Tonya, I want to talk a little bit about how you got where you are today. With all the hard work, you've got fame, you've got success, you're very well known around the world. How did you get there? How was it in the beginning? And all the trials and tribulations you went through to get where you are today. And what gave you that push and that edge to keep going?
Honestly, I don't even feel I can take credit for that. So much of that, it was being in the right place at the right time. Um, I can't take credit for getting cast in a Broadway show by the gods of Broadway, Hal Prince and Steve Sondheim, when I was 19. I can take credit for the fact that my sort of mentor from elementary school said, "Hey, don't go to Puerto Rico for Christmas break. Come home and go to this cattle call, and gamble that you won't go to Puerto Rico, but maybe you'll get a shot to do this Broadway show." And I did go to a cattle call, and I was selected at the end of that cattle call to go to New York and audition for Hal Prince and Steve Sondheim. And then they cast me in a Broadway show. And that opened doors for me that most people who start off in New York can't open. At 19, it was easy for me to get an agent because I'd already been hired by Hal Prince and Stephen Sondheim. So those are things that are just fortuitous. I can take credit for saying, yeah, I'll take this gamble. How risk averse are you? I'm not very risk averse. I mentioned to you, Rohini, but your listeners don't know that I grew up in a house with a mother who I did not know had mental illness. I was about 25 years old when I learned that my mother had schizophrenia. And so many of the things that I grew up with and thought were normal were not normal. And the first impetus for this was I was in an acting class with William Esper, a brilliant teacher, and I was doing the Spoon River monologues. And he had
Okay.
given me a Spoon River monologue about a woman who had burned her house down because the walls were talking to her and the cows were talking to her, and they had told her to do that. And so she burned her house down. And I went in and I did this monologue sincerely and honestly. And Bill said to me, "You know that this woman is mentally ill." And I was like, "Why would she be mentally ill?" And he's like, "The walls talk to her." I said, "Yeah, the walls talk to my mother all the time."
Oh, wow.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
this
my
was my
goodness.
normal.
Yeah.
And so that was the first time that I even began to inquire of my family. And of course, my family was all in denial. No, 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 no. She has some problems, but no, no, no. And so there was a point at which I talked to a doctor who was the first time that I got a diagnosis. But then I began to go, well, am I crazy? Because my mother was, of all of her siblings, the most capable and successful in many ways, when she was on her meds. So then I was like challenging, whoa, what is mental illness? And am I that? And my mother was really violently brutal towards me physically, psychologically. And so coming into show business, which can be very hard and full of rejection and full of abuse, it was like, people would do these horrible things to me. And it was the first time where I had the power that I didn't have in my mother's household to go, oh, yeah, I'm leaving this room. You're going to talk to me like that? I'm out. Uh, I had the power to do that in a job situation that I didn't have at home. And so there was a way in which the brutality that I had lived under made me unafraid of any what are you going to do to me? Are you going to punch me in the face? Because that's what my mother does when I don't do what she wants me to do. So, okay, bring it. I'm going to live or die. I've survived this far. Do what you got. Do your best.
Oh, yeah. That's sad. Hmm. That's very sad. So you had a rough upbringing.
I did have a rough upbringing, but look at how powerful I am. And
Yeah.
it's because of that I'm this powerful, because I know that adversity doesn't break me. It,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, two babies, a very physically abusive mother, three husbands, all of whom, no, two husbands who tried to like actively work to destroy my life, even to work together to destroy my life, who at the divorces wiped me out of everything I had, all the money, even just my personal accumulations, like people who vindictively went out of their way to destroy me. In 2011, when I moved to New York from my last marriage, I came to New York with nothing but my child and the shirt on my back. And my
Wow.
child hated me because we had left this 5,000 square foot house on a golf course in this gated community. We had this very plush, rich white woman life. And now we're back in New York sleeping on people's couches. Within 1 month of
That's
being
hard.
in New York, I had my own apartment. It was furnished. Friends put things on lift serves, got me all the furniture, the sheets, the towels, the dishes, everything. And it was this affirmation for me that there is this divine support for us if we trust that it's there.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
within a month, I had an apartment, and then work was coming to me. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was like, okay, I get this $400 a week job. I'm going to make it. I'll take this $50 job. I'll take that. And gradually, with time, I got more opportunities and have reached this point where, I'm kind of financially free.
There you go. And it's hard in the beginning. I like what you have behind you. Get over yourself. That's
That's my book
wonderful.
cover.
That is your book cover, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I must let the audience know that that's a good book to get hold of and to read. Yeah. Get over yourself. Now, this will lead me to what I asked you earlier. And that was I read somewhere as I was doing my research on you that you said no should be a sentence and not a word. I think that's what it was. I want you to explain that because it hit me really hard. It sort of resonated with a lot of things in my life where, you say no and you don't mean no. But how did you come up with that phrase?
I cannot take credit for it. The person who directed me there and who may have said those exact words to me is a dating doctor. And one of
Okay.
the things that she talked about, and this I first learned from Gavin DeBecker, who wrote a brilliant book called The Gift of Fear. He's a profiler.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talks about is how American women are socialized to be attracted to and to accept um, offers from sociopaths. And he listed all of the movies that were supposedly romantic movies where the men in them were sociopaths, like The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman was one. And he said one of the things that a predator does is a predator tests their mark. They test
Right.
a potential mark. And one of the ways they might do the test is that, you're out at a gathering and they might come up to you and go, "Oh, hey, can I get you a drink?"
Yeah.
And you say no. And they go, "Oh, you probably don't talk to people like me." And now you feel like, "Oh, you're being rude." And so now you've gone into yourself and they go, "Well, can I just get you a soft drink?" And you're just like, "No." Because something inside of you is telling you no. And they go, "Well, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not going to put anything in it. Well, how about a glass of water? I can even get you a bottle of water." Now you're feeling like you've made someone uncomfortable. And as soon as you say yes, they know you remark.
Yeah.
They know that your no is not a no, that you can
Yeah.
be talked into, that you can be convinced.
And that's how you came out. You have to, when you mean no, you mean no.
It is a complete sentence. And
Yeah.
and no explanation in design. That's another thing that this doctor talked about. She says the biological skill that the divine has given to men is they can talk us into or out of anything.
Anything.
And so she would say, you can't engage in the conversation. Because once you've engaged in the conversation, they're going to keep you going and going and going until you have talked yourself into what they want.
Yeah.
Another technique besides the no, let me just say one more thing about no's is I think they've sort of certain uh, psychological, tests have said that most people only have about 8 no's. And so the person who asks the 9th time is going to get what they want.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Really? Wow,
You
this
know,
is,
and certain
yeah.
children figure that out. Oh,
Yeah.
mom, after 8 no's, mom says yes. Oh, so I just got
Yeah.
to keep asking.
Keep asking until she says yes. Yeah. Or until she's fed up, right? Yeah.
Correct. And
Well,
so,
that is such,
yeah,
go ahead. That is such an important message for our listeners here, the women out there, because we all know women who've been through situations that have not been nice, or they've been left, totally bankrupt, just like you said, or they believed in something else and something else came out of the relationship, else came out of their marriage. It's quite. That's why I insist on women being financially independent, right? Now, just before we sign off, what is your next movie, and when are you acting, and what are you doing? What's your next program? I think the last time you were in Panama, you did a show, didn't you? You were
at the
doing
American Trade, we had a
at the
reading
yes,
with
that's
some
right.
of the expat community of my new play called Jeffrey Manor, which
Yeah.
will be presented at the Apollo Theater Victoria Stages April 12th of 2025. And while that play is in rehearsal, I will be performing in Joy Behar's new play, My Best Ex-Husband. It'll be myself, I think, and Susan Lucci and Mercedes Rule will be the 3. And I think there may be a 4th woman who will be 4 women for 3 months. We'll be doing that off Broadway in New York.
Oh, that'll be wonderful. And that's in April, is it? Is that when is that
That I
airing?
will be doing that Joy Behar play in March, and
In
then
March.
my
Yeah.
play is in April.
Wow, you're a very, very busy person. I want to thank you for joining us today, Tonya. I know we sort of veered off to a different topic, but I'm waiting for you to come back to Panama so we can have a live podcast. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I think I have a lot of questions to ask you, and I'm
Okay.
sure as such our audience want to hear from you as well. Thank you so much for joining in today. Thank you for being our
Pleasure.
guest. And Step by Step Talks. If anybody wanted to ask you some questions, Tonya, can they? Is there any way they can email you or send you a message?
Yeah, Tonya Pinkins.
How do we reach you?
Tonya Pinkins at gmail.com.
Oh, that's pretty easy. Tonya Pinkins at gmail.com.
Mhm.
If you have any questions for Step by Step Talks, it's www.stepbysteptalks.com. My name is Rohini Kapoor. And if you like what you've heard, please hit share, subscribe, and like, and send it to all the guests you can, and send us lots of questions, because that's what we're here for. We want to give back to the community. As women who've been through a lot, we want to give back to the community and help other women. Thank you so much, Tonya.
Thank you, Rohini.
All right. Bye-bye.